Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Usagi Podjimbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and this is a podcast where I go down the rabbit hole that is Usagi Yojimbo and talk about my adventure reading the comic book series. We are currently reading through the massive tome that is Usagi Yojimbo Saga Volume 2. We are looking at two particular stories. We're doing a little out of original issue reading order because we're reading Return to Adachi Plain, which is a short story in issue 10 of Usagi Yojimbo. Then we are reading as well The Weather Field, which is technically issue 7 of Usagi Yojimbo. So issue 10 has like 3 short stories in it. Because the Return to Adachi Plain is technically the first story in this book, that's what I'm going to be covering. But it's a fun little short story, and it's one I think everybody will actually really like. I did debate whether or not to leave it in the original reading order, but I decided no, it actually fits with the other story kind of a little bit. To an extent, it fits a little bit. I'm not going to argue with their reading order. It's just a little confusing, sometimes when you're trying to stay with like the original reading order. But we got a good one for you guys today. I want to say thank you to everybody who listens, everybody who is a part of the Facebook group Usagi Podjimbo, Usagi Yojimbo podcast. We have like 134 members in there. I'm really surprised that many. Well, I'm not surprised like that many people love Usagi Yojimbo. I'm just that surprised that a lot of people would want to join my little podcast group and actually listen to the podcast. Because, I know Usagi's kind of like a niche comic. I just never thought anybody would want to really listen. I thought half the time I would be probably talking to maybe like 10 people or whatever. But it's cool to see that everybody is enjoying the podcast, even if I mispronounce some names. And I think I'm going to mispronounce some names in this particular podcast. So I'm sorry about that. But without further ado, let's get into this, and I'm going to start talking about the Return to Adachi Plain. So the story starts out with Usagi, and he is walking through, obviously, a plain, and this plain is very familiar with him. He's got his hat, which is cool. We never really get to see Usagi with his hat, but he's holding his hat, and he kind of like touches the scar over his eye, which I always forget that that's actually a scar. Sometimes I think he has like an extra eyebrow sometimes, but no, it's actually a scar he has over his eye. And he says, so long ago, and he starts to remember the battle that actually happened here. And this battle is the Battle of Adachi Plain, which this is actually a pivotal, seminal moment in Usagi's history, because this is where Lord Mifune and his samurai actually went up against Lord Hikiji. I want to say it was for the first time. I can't really remember, but this is a very pivotal moment in Usagi's history, because it definitely shapes Usagi in the long run, I have to say. So we see basically the war breaking out, and Mifune says, victory is ours. Here comes the General Toda to brace our left flank. And you hear Usagi say, after them, or he says, after them, Usagi, I want Lord Hikiji's head on a stake. And he's like, yes, Lord Mifune. And we see one of the samurai, and he's like, Lord Mifune's General Toda has turned traitor, apparently, and is attacking our own forces. And Usagi's like, what? What's going on? We're caught in the pincer. We've got to withdraw and regroup. And we hear, "Yes, my lord." That's what Mifune says. And we see Lord Mifune get struck by a bunch of arrows. He's like, everybody's like, "Hurry! We've got to break through their ranks." And as Lord Mifune is saying this, he is like getting struck by arrows, and we know this has happened before. This happens, and we never. I don't know if we see in this much detail, but we do see this happen before. And Usagi runs to Lord Mifune, and he's like, "They'll not disgrace you by displaying your head on a stake." And I love this scene where Usagi is like fighting through to get to Lord Mifune. He basically cuts off Mifune's head. And Usagi's like, "Which way do I go? I've got to get to the hill and hide. My lord, nothing must stop me." And we see these guys are like, "Yeah, look out. He's gone. He's a madman." And we see Usagi start charging to the troops. They're like, "Yeah, he's a berserker. And he's like, "Out of my way. Let me through. Stop him. Protect Lord. Protect the Lord. Protect the Lord." As one of the samurai say. They're like, "Stop him. Keep him away. Keep him away from here. Stay back from Lord Akiji." And we see Usagi's like, "Akiji?" And we see Lord Akiji, which I think we've only seen Lord Akiji once, technically, in the story so far. Or Usagi Yojimbo so far. Which is crazy to think about. Somebody who's so prolific. We've only technically seen him once, but I think they kind of retconned his appearance, and we don't really know what Lord Akiji actually truly looks like. Usagi charges his way through to Lord Akiji while holding Mifune's severed head. Usagi charges, and the guys are like, "Bodyguards, where are the Lord Akiji's bodyguards? Don't let him get to the Lord." And Usagi like jumps through on his horse, and they're like, "Stay back, Lord Akiji, stay back." And I love this artwork. Like, Lord Akiji is very menacing in his armor, I have to say. We don't get to have a really good look at his face. We only get to see the mask that Lord Akiji wears. I love that. I love that. So menacing. Very much like a samurai Darth Vader. I know that sounds weird, but that's the vibes that I'm getting from this. And Usagi actually fights Lord Akiji, which I don't remember if they actually talked about that in the last story when we saw this battle. And he's like, "You insolent fool!" And he actually cuts Usagi, breaking the helmet of Usagi and actually slicing right above Usagi's eye. And all the men are like, "Oh, get Lord Akiji to safety. Look, he has Mifune's head," and they all go after him. Usagi basically breaks through. He gets away, and it's really cool. It's a really cool scene where like they're all firing arrows at him, but Usagi is definitely like a man on adrenaline, pure adrenaline. I feel like, because of the way he's acting, pure instinct, I would have to say, but he's very, very angry. I feel like. And Usagi ends up getting away, obviously, and he runs off. And I love the transition in this story where you see Usagi running away on the horse, and they like transition to him like rubbing his scar over his head. And he's like, "That was a long, long time ago," and that's actually where this story actually ends. I have to say, this is a fun little short story. We'll get into the other issue in a minute, or story in a minute. This is a fun little short story that I really does feel like adds a lot to the Usagi like origin mythos, because a lot of this took place in the Usagi Yojimbo Origins, the samurai story, which we did get a lot of details about that in that particular book, in the samurai story. But I feel like this adds so much to that, because of the fact that he actually did fight Akiji, and I don't remember maybe I'm just misremembering stuff, but just to see like how Usagi acted was pretty crazy to see, and how dedicated he was to Lord Mifune and whatnot, and seeing like how this event really truly shapes Usagi in an interesting way, and it's an event that he never really lets go of, and he even it kind of even shows like some sort of PTSD from the situation, which is interesting to look at and see like how much it actually did affect him. But moving on. It's a really good read. I really like it for a short story. I think it's actually really good. Transitioning. That was a terrible transition. Please don't stop listening. Don't stop listening on my account. But we are looking at the Withered field, which what did I say this one was in? This is actually issue 7 of the Usagi Yojimbo saga, or just Usagi Yojimbo volume 3. And we see a man. He is it's just like a 9-panel layout where he's like, he has a sword, he walks up, he bows, he kneels, he kind of unsheaths his sword and holds it up, and we see Usagi is actually watching a duel at a swordsman's school, which we've actually seen one of these before, way back when Usagi competed in a competition, which this ties back into that sort of. We see Usagi looking at the man from before, and he's like, his fighting prowess is his pre-fight equit. I don't know how you say it. Pre-fight ritual? I don't know what you would call it. I can't read at the moment. But his etiquette, his pre-fight etiquette is impeccable. And he obviously has done this before, he says. And we see this he's like an old grizzled Ronin, I feel like. Very much I feel like he's like the Clint Eastwood of Ronin, I feel like, because he has a very serious look on his face. And he's fighting this one particular student of the school, and he actually takes him on pretty easily. And while this is going on, Usagi's like, oh, the outcome is so obvious. And to see like how like the different Ronin or swordsman acts while in this duel, because the one is like sweating bullets, he's like gritting his teeth, and the other samurai, who is actually named Koji Nakamura. Koji is playing it very cool, calm, and collected, and he takes this guy out fairly easy in a cool, like epic duel. I feel like very quick, like one swoop, one hit kill type of thing. But he's not actually dead. Koji apparently has beaten 5 of the instructors of this school, and he demands a swords match with the sword master. Now, I'm sorry if I butcher this name. Ueno is his name, I believe. And the one guy, his name is Ishii. He's like, no, we're not doing that. You are basically beneath our master. We're not doing this at all. And Koji's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go tell everybody and announce to everybody that I basically beat all y'all and defeated y'all, and you're basically gonna your reputation is going to be ruined. And then Ishii is like, all right, fine. You know, we have no choice. We'll accept your challenge. As the matter will be discussed with our master upon his return. You know, we will let you know the time and the place for this particular duel. Koji says, okay, you know, I'm staying at the temple outside of town for the remainder of today's, and we'll find out the remainder of today's matches are actually canceled because everybody basically got beaten. We find out Usagi was actually there to participate in like a sword match, like almost like a test of strength or test of skill. But he's like, oh, too bad he can't actually do it. He gets up and kind of walks away. As he's walking away, Ishii is actually talking to one of the students, and he's like, the student's like, oh, is Master Ueno really going to fight this upstart instructor, Ishii? Is he, you know? And Ishii's like, As I said, he is beneath the master, and he has no time for him. And Ishii is basically going against his word, which I don't think is going to end so well for Ishii. We see Koji walk off, and Usagi is somewhat behind him. Koji ends up walking down this alleyway, and his strap on his sandal actually breaks. He kind of trips. He stops to fix it. He's like, "Oh, darn it! Oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. This is my favorite pair of shoes." I feel like when you mess up your favorite pair of shoes. But in this instance, Koji only has one pair, so he has to make do with what he's got. And Usagi walks up and he's like, "Forgive me for interrupting. I am called Miyamoto Usagi, and I want to congratulate you on your victories today." And Koji's like, "Oh, thank you. I noticed you were set to challenge the school, the Surudoi school. Surudoi school. That's a mouthful, I feel like. Yourself, Usagi-sana. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to witness your skills." And he gives his introduction as well. "My name is Nakamura Koji." And Usagi's like, "Yeah, I've heard of you before. You're the you were a swordsman yourself, a teacher of one of the eight traditional styles, sorry." And Koji was like, "Yeah, that was definitely a lifetime ago. I was even in a position to become a fencing instructor to Lord Hikiji himself." Well, if you know that name weighs a lot on Usagi, because he's made a big impact on Usagi's life. But apparently, Koji actually agreed to a match before the Dark Lord against an obscure upstart, apparently. And this upstart is his face is shrouded in mystery. But if you're an eagle-eyed viewer, you'll know who this upstart is. But we'll get to that towards the end of this issue. And he actually was somebody who rejected the traditional styles. And Koji's like, "I should have won easily, but was beaten 3 times in a row. He was humiliated, but I guess he kind of took it on the chin a little bit. I feel like he tried to better himself in this situation. He actually starts to go on a warrior pilgrimage, where he's like, how dare I presume to teach others when I myself fell far short. I purged my spirit in the mountains." And you see him like under the waterfall praying, with the water hitting him over the waterfall, and he goes walking through the mountains, and whatnot. Apparently, over the protest of his instructors and his students, he abandoned his school and went on the warrior's pilgrimage, obviously. And we all know the sword is the soul of the samurai, and discipline sharpens the soul. And he practiced diligently, apparently. And he honed his skills against great schools, as well as lone swordsmen, all in preparation to encounter that obscure upstart again. This time, he will defeat him. And I love the transition from the normal day time period to whenever we get a flashback in this particular issue, because the way the art changes, it's very more of like a scratchy style. There's a lot of cross hatching and hatching and stippling. Very much different, very distinguished style, which I love to see. It's still reminiscent of Stan Sakai's normal style, but it's a little different. Very subtle shading techniques he adds to this particular story. This is all going on as Koji is actually fixing his sandal, but sadly Koji says that he seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth. That should do it, he says. He fixes his sandal until next time when he has to get a new pair. He kind of jumps up and starts stomping his feet a little bit. And we see these men run up down this alley, and Koji and Usagi are talking, and Koji's like, "Oh, so you traveled the warrior's pilgrimage too, Usagi?" He's like, "Yeah, but not as long as you, And Koji's like, oh, time is irrelevant, Usagi. It's all about the experience that counts, which I do agree. And all these men are hiding around the corner, waiting to jump out and get the two samurai. And I love this little detail. Usagi and Koji are like, 16, no, maybe 15 men. Like their senses are so in tuned and fine-tuned that they can sense people waiting to jump out from behind like a bush or something to try to basically kill them, which is amazing, I feel like. All the men basically surround Koji and Usagi, and Koji's like, you recognize any of these men from the Surudoi school? And they're like, you shamed our school, old man, and you won't get away with it. What is it with, like, groups of people, like, with schools and stuff, wanting to, like, get honor for their school? That's just so weird, I feel like. I know this was back in the day, but, like, I know an honor meant a lot to people. But, like, I'm kind of a little confused, like, why they would all risk their lives to settle, like, a stupid grudge, I feel like. Which is, it's kind of funny to think about it. When you think about this day and age, like, it's just so silly. Like, just get over it, move on, better yourself. As they're surrounded, Koji says, I half expected you, though, I had hoped, better for this school, that they wouldn't, stoop to such things. And they're like, quiet, old man. And Koji tells Usagi, he's like, you can stay and join me, or you can leave, but I'm not gonna put it against you if you decide to leave. And they're like, kill him, and Usagi's like, you know what? I'm gonna stay. I don't like people who have treachery in their hearts. And we get this really, really cool scene of Usagi and Koji fighting together against all these men. They're all dying, and Koji happens to notice Usagi's style. And after the fight, Usagi's like, hey, maybe we should report these guys to the authorities. Because, we did just kill like 16 people. That's a lot of people, But Koji, sorry, I don't know why I say Kenji. Koji has a good point. He says 2 Ronin slaying 16 students from one of our country's most prestige fighting schools with no witnesses to back up our story. And Usagi's like, well, you're right. Let's get out of here. We'll let the Surudoi school explain their mess. Temple's this way, let's go. And they go off, and we transition from that to the Surudoi school, and we see the master, the head swordsman, teacher of the school. He's like, you sent 16 of our best men. He's berating Ishii. I almost forgot his name, Ishii. He's not important, you sent 16 of our men, he says, they're ambushed by a lone samurai, and Ishii starts to be like, oh no, it's okay, of course not, and all because of your skill and whatnot, you basically just, and he's like, oh, you don't think I can defeat this guy, you don't think my skills are worthy? I'm the headmaster. And Ishii's like, no, I don't think that, So he basically is like, no, I'm going to leave, go find this samurai. I don't care what you say. I leave for one day, and you basically make the school fall apart. And we lose, some of our best students. Ishii's trying to stop him. He's like, no, master, no, don't do this, And he's like, I am blaming you. This is all on you, Blame. For this fiasco, Ishii. And with a shocking turn of events, all the students start to leave. Ishii's sitting there. And he's like, well, there's only one way to regain the honor I once lost. He's like, I gotta kill myself. And that's what he does. He basically commits seppuku and kills himself. Again, I don't think it was worth it, but hey, I'm not in that time period, so I don't know if I would be thinking the same thing, But the headmaster, he runs off on his horse, gallops through the streets. He is stopped by the police because of obviously the 16 men who have died. He's like, hey, swordsmaster, this guy, all these 16 men, they're from your school. What is actually going on? He just looks at him and like rides off. He doesn't even acknowledge the police officer, really. Koji starts talking to Usagi as they're leaving to go to the temple. They're in the progress of walking to the temple. He's like, oh, you have such a distinct style, Usagi. Under who did you study? He's like, Katsuichi Sensei, a mountain hermit he was. Just one of his handful of students he's actually taught. And Koji's like, Katsuichi? And Usagi's like, oh, you know him? Koji starts to go off on this little tangent about dried fields. Winter will be upon us soon. Such is life, huh? And Usagi doesn't really understand what Koji is actually talking about. Soon, they are actually interrupted by the sword's master. And he's like, Koji Nakamura. And he's like, that's me. I'm Koji Nakamura. We see Uino. He is the master of the school, obviously. He's like, I'm the master of the school. He's like, your school has 16 fewer men, Koji says. I'm like, damn. He burned him. He's actually like, yes, I know I passed him on the way. I will go talk to the police later on. But, I apologize for what actually happened. The cowardly conduct of my people. I assure you, I had no knowledge of their treachery. As to make up for this, I will, for this actions, I will actually accept your duel. And we get this really cool, like, stare down as Usagi's, like, watching, they're both on either end. Very classic samurai duel, I feel like. Usagi's talking to himself. He's like, such swordsmanship. It's anyone's guess as to the outcome will be. Which is true. Like, these two men are very, very talented swordsmen. And Usagi's just sitting there sweating for the outcome. And we see them go run at each other. They swing their swords, and Koji actually wins, killing the swordsmaster. Usagi is aghast. He says, I've never before witnessed such skill. And Koji's like, I have one more match tonight. And he's like, with you. So obviously he knew who Usagi was, and he knew who Katsuichi was, right? So as the reader, being me, and maybe you guys out there too, I start putting two and two together, just like Usagi starts putting two and two together. We find out that the person that Nakamura Koji told Usagi about was actually Katsuichi. The duel he had with him many years ago. That's Usagi's teacher, obviously, and Usagi's like, I guess as much. Koji says, he's traveled the lengths of the country searching for somebody to no avail. He couldn't find anybody. That's because, turns out, anybody with that specific technique. Turns out, Katsuichi didn't really teach anybody. I think there are two or three people who he taught. I'm not for sure, honestly. I know one of them is Usagi. I know they send Jotaro to go teach with them, if I remember correctly. And then I forgot who the third person was. But that's beside the point. Koji says, I waited long and hard the time to test my skills against Katsuichi's school, which Katsuichi didn't really have a school. His school was like of one, which originally was just Usagi. Here's Katsuichi's school right here. This is his star pupil. Koji says, I will not let you out of this, Usagi. And Usagi's like, I know. And Usagi's kind of sweating a little bit because he doesn't know if he's going to probably live or die within this particular fight. Which, man, this fight is very, very crazy. Very, very well done. At one point, Koji's sandal snaps again, which causes him to fall. Usagi misses him, swiping goes to swipe down, and actually Koji catches the blade and like throws Usagi, and Usagi goes for his wakizashi, which to no avail. Koji has his number, and he points the sword at Usagi's face. Koji telling Usagi, "Draw your sword and you will die. Get up slowly," he says. Koji says, "A fine duel, Usagi, but I can't let you die yet. I need you to take a message to your former teacher. I look forward to the remaining rematch with him," he says. Tell Katsuichi that I will be waiting at the Kitanoji Temple a year from today. Excuse me about that pronunciation. And he's like, "So long," and that's actually where this issue ends. Man, I have to say, I was a little iffy at first before reading this, because I was like, "Oh, this is going to be about another little fighting school." But man, it is very much so much more than that. I loved all the throwbacks and connections to Katsuichi and Lord Kiji. I feel like that was very well done. Made the story a little bit more personal than like a random guy who is just in it for whatever. It's very much like a test your might against like the who's who of like swordsmen. And because Katsuichi taught Usagi, he's basically next in line. He's quote the best of the best, or the best at the moment before Koji could get to Katsuichi at some point, or find him, because we never really find out where Katsuichi, or Usagi never tells Koji where Katsuichi actually is, but which is weird. Which I guess we're gonna be running into Katsuichi soon. I like it, the fact that we have a reoccurring character in Nakamura Koji, which I think is really cool. I think he's a really cool character, and I think he's a character that can add a lot to the overarching story whenever he comes back, just like a dog, or what's his name, Dog, or what was it? I forget what his name was. What's the name of the guy who was in the Mongrel story? Was it just Dog? I think it was just Dog. Yeah. But anyways, I really liked this issue. This issue pleasantly surprised me, as well as the short story. I really, really loved both of these. I thought they were a lot of fun. I loved the different art styles, but I didn't really mention it in the first story. The different art styles that Stan decided to play with in these two particular stories are really, really well done, I feel like. Is it Stray Dog? His name was Stray Dog, I think it was, yeah. I don't know why I forgot his name. Yeah, the art styles he used were really good and just different. And I feel like it added a lot to the impact of the storytelling. In particular, I feel like, because they were different than his normal styles. But I liked it. I liked the callbacks, like I said. I liked the interaction. I like that Usagi didn't kill him, or he didn't die, because in a lot of like one shots or whatever, like a lot of people just die. We don't get a lot of returning characters for the most part, give or take a couple. But yeah, really, really enjoyed this. And moving on, we're going to continue this journey. I am sorry if I mispronounce some things. It's my bad. I'm sorry. Sometimes I get a little nervous while recording the podcast. But yeah, really enjoyed these two particular stories. And I can't wait to see where this actually goes. So yeah, I'm Mike. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Stay safe. Go read some Usagi Yojimbo. Leave me some feedback on Spotify or on the Facebook page, Usagi Podjimbo. Let me know how I'm doing. Give me some constructive criticism. I love that. But we'll see you guys next time. Stay safe. Catch you guys on the next episode.